Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Greidick. I'm Dr. Martha Greidick. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. Flexibility is the key to your success. Being too rigid in life can prevent you from growing, and it can make you be stuck. It can also bring disharmony to your life and to your experience. And this is as true at the workplace as it is in our personal lives. And when I'm talking about flexibility, I don't mean the idea of being a pushover or disorganized or having no direction. It's about being able to go with the flow as necessary. Just look at history. It's full of examples. Those things or people or ideas that refused to change or evolve have either gone away or died out. That's true for so many different things throughout our history. If we look at evolution, whether it's the evolution of a species, of an idea or concept, or a business, failure to adapt and change and be flexible to circumstances as needed has often proved to be detrimental. Flexibility means the ability to adapt in a way that allows for survival and for success. Flexibility means the ability to adapt, allowing for survival and success. Flexibility can bring with it things that rigidity or being rigid simply won't. Being flexible keeps you moving, keeps you growing. It allows for harmony with others and with your environment. Flexibility allows you to pivot, to change on the spot. Sometimes, oftentimes, this can be critical for survival and for success. Think about all of the celebrities who have reinvented themselves time and again over time to ensure their celebrity status, to ensure that they're relevant, versus those who have remained stuck, maybe stuck in whatever was their glory, wherever they're peaked. Now they're seen as has-beens. Now they're forgotten. So this is an excellent example of how flexibility can allow us to pivot, to change, so that we continue to grow and be relevant. Flexibility allows us to change directions. It also allows us to experience, to be exposed to new ideas, new concepts, new experiences, and new people. Sometimes people can be rigid because change and flexibility by its very nature can be unfamiliar and maybe a little scary. But all the efforts to remain rigid and to forget change or not embrace change are quite futile in their nature, because truly the only constant in this universe is change. So how flexible are you? Think about your typical workday? Does your job require that you are fairly flexible, or is it pretty steady, same thing every day? And that will vary by person. Now think about a situation, the last time where a situation called for you to be flexible, called for you being able to adapt or change directions on a moment's notice, or figure out a new way of doing things because the old way failed miserably and maybe now it's an urgent matter or even an emergency. How well did you respond? How flexible were you in that experience? That's a good exercise to give you an idea what your flexible ability is, how flexible you really are when the chips are down, when the situation calls for it. You may think of yourself as being flexible, but when faced with a situation, you may have a hard time with that. That's why it's important to examine some recent situations where flexibility was required to understand how you responded to it and to then know how well you do in terms of your ability to be flexible. As you're listening to this episode, are you beginning to see the potential difference in experiences between someone who is flexible, who is willing and able to go with the flow, as opposed to someone who is rigid and who rejects change and refuses to go with the flow? Those could be very different experiences, and that is as true for our work experience as it is for experiences outside of the office. The need to be flexible and the benefits of being able to adapt to situations as needed is a very simple concept, but it's one that is missed in execution by many. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. The importance of flexibility in your success is tremendous. Being rigid prevents us from growing. Flexibility keeps you growing, keeps you moving forward, and it allows for harmony in your experience. It allows you to pivot and reinvent yourself or your solution or your situation as needed. Flexibility allows you to change directions as needed. It also allows you to explore new ideas, new practices, and new solutions. As the week unfolds, I invite you to examine how flexible you are in your approach to change and everyday situations. Are you rigid and unable to adjust and adapt as needed? And is that preventing you from growing and moving forward? Is it causing disharmony in your surroundings and your experience? Or are you able to be flexible and adaptable so that you can grow and move forward and change as you need to and explore new ways of getting things done? It's important to be aware of how flexible you are, and only by conscious examination, one that is honest and thorough, can you really understand where you are on that scale of flexibility. Many may say that they're flexible, but when faced with an actual situation, they're much more likely to dig their heels in rather than adapt and go with the flow. So I invite you to examine yourself in terms of how flexible you are, because flexibility can be key to your success. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I hope that you will join me again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.